So welcome to another Alpha Plus webinar. This one is about online assessments and taking surveys. I think that's a topic that is it's quite common for you if you're working for LBS programs, doing satisfaction surveys and or follow-ups at the different intervals, 3, 6, and 12 months. Many programs that we've talked to are now trying to use online surveys. Also, it's been coming to our attention during the LearnerGains research project last year. So I talk a little bit about that and how that relates. A little bit about me. My name is Matthias. I've worked for Alpha Plus for about 13 years. I mostly focus, like my colleagues, on what we call tech coaching or tech consulting or IT coaching. And I also do quite a bit of research about digital technology and assessments, in particular about the milestones and a little bit about LearnerGains. Like my colleagues at Alpha Plus, I facilitate presentations and workshops on what are hopefully practical applications of digital technology for teaching and learning. And for many years, I've been a user of SurveyMonkey and Google Forms, which is the two tools that I'll be talking about today in connection with the online surveys. Somehow my smiley face there got booted to the next line, but hey. Okay, after the maybe about an hour after the webinar, you should be able to download the slides and end the recording. It takes a little while to process the recording from the webinar archive. The links right there. You can also at the end of the presentation, I'll show you where you can download the slides right away, so you can actually click on the link. And there'll be other links that I share with you in the slides. Okay, hi Mira. Let's go. All right, so webinar overview. So the survey that we've developed and that we're talking about is called Learning with Technology, and that's the theme of the webinar. We'll talk a little bit why it might be important to learn to take surveys and how to take them and how to manage them and how to navigate them. I'll talk a little bit about the development background of the surveys. Talk a little bit more about SurveyMonkey versus Google Forms. Not too much, but the survey that we developed is available in both formats, depending on what you want to use, if you want to use it. And it is free to use. There's a lesson plan that goes with the survey. It's designed as a learning activity, not as an assessment activity, even though we're trying to recognize that survey taking, even in the form of assessments, has become more and more common. What can you do with the results, and what the kind of data is that you get out of a survey like that? And then I'll share with you, of course, the links to the lesson plan and the surveys, so you can have access to them. So yes, why learn to take surveys? You can see I'm using, if you see my tabs there on the top, I'm using Google Slides, and this is the first time I'm doing it for a presentation. I see a couple of things that have dropped down to the next line, but it's a good Google Slides is a good way to do it. So why learn to take surveys? One of the reasons why it is good for your clients, for your learners to to learn about taking surveys is just to, like I said before, to prepare for online surveys that there might be, that you might want to ask them to fill out, to collect information for your reporting. So, for example, satisfaction surveys or the follow-up service that you're required to do. It's also good preparation for online assessments, like LearnerGains. You've probably heard of the LearnerGains tool, Easy, that was under consideration to serve as a LearnerGains tool. I'm not sure if a final decision has been made there, but what a lot of those tools, whatever the tool will be or would be, what a lot of those tools have in common is the basic navigation skills, and that they do have in common with survey taking. And obviously, if it's something like a LearnerGains assessment, then you would want your clients to be not to have issues with survey taking or basic web navigation to stand in the way of their of that assessment. It's good for, I think it's good for clients to know about basic survey features, because they also appear in many other ways and on other forms, on, for example, online applications for jobs or things like that. For example, form fields that you have to fill out, radio and check buttons. The radio buttons are the round ones where you can only choose one. The check buttons are the ones where you can choose multiple answers, or buttons like the next page and the submit buttons, and those kind of things. So it's good for, I think, clients to recognize the commonalities and the functionalities of these basic features that surveys and online forums have in common. It's also for learners and for your clients, it might also be a welcome opportunity to provide feedback on the personal use and preferences of online resources and of for communication or for learning. You'll see a little bit more what I'm talking about when we look at the survey. For example, if you wanted to know what kind of digital devices they are using outside of the learning environment, if they could imagine them being used for their learning, if they're required to use them in a job that they think they're applying for, or that they want to apply for, those kind of things. And I think it's a good way for learners to have a little bit of input on this decision-making process at your organization, about online learning and about the use. Sorry about the mistype there. About the use of digital tools at your programs. So the development background of those surveys, there was first a more basic version of this survey and the lesson plan developed by the Learn IT to Teach project for LINK programs. I also work for that project, kind of a 1 day a week kind of thing. And we had developed that because because LINK programs, for similar reasons, wanted to know what their learners are using, and if they wanted to do more online learning. The Learn IT to Teach project is a project that it's a professional development project for LINK teachers to using online resources, and it's funded by CIC. So at Alpha Plus, we adapted and customized it for LBS programs, and that adaptation customization is based on our work with programs over the years, and it's in part based on an evaluation of the LearnerGains tool, Easy. Like I mentioned before, because we had a chance to look at it a little bit more deeply and look at the navigation features and the kind of things that a tool like that would require learners to be familiar with. We worked with a couple of LBS programs to review it and then to pilot it. And we did that as part of our IT coaching service last year. Our IT coaching service, if you're not familiar with them, every year we partner with about 20 LBS organizations and work very closely with them to try to find solutions for a lot of different kind of issues, whatever is on a priority list of the programs, and we try to find out if there's a technology solution to the issue that is at hand. A lot of times there is, not always, and we're definitely not trying to use technology for technology's sake, but we're trying to put the technology to the service of those programs, and then develop solutions in partnership with them. And this survey was one of those solutions that in response to issues that I've mentioned before and that were articulated by those two programs. There's also a French translation of the SurveyMonkey version of the survey and the lesson plan. The Google form version is not translated yet, but I'm sure we can do that in due time. And there's an adaptation was done to Google Forms because it's for many people easier to access than SurveyMonkey, and it's free. We're using a Creative Commons license, which kind of says it's free to use for everybody. If you adapt it and customize it, feel free to share it and share it on. Okay, so this is what it looks like, but I will go to it live. So this is the SurveyMonkey version. Let me just check if there's any questions. No problem, Angela. Glad to see you here. Okay. So I'll go to that live and show you a few things, how the survey starts. I think the survey overall, obviously, it depends on how quickly learners work through it. So it's really hard to say how long it takes, and it's fully customizable. So you can, if you decide to use it, you can just use a few questions of it, use the whole thing, whatever you want to do, whatever you think is appropriate for your learners. So let's go to that one live. This version here, you'll see when you see something in brackets, there's some explanations in that survey that then when you use it can just be deleted, just to explain why there's certain type of questions there. So this one, for example, it starts right off with a question about the person's name. They can choose whatever name they like. They don't have to identify themselves, although if you want to know, if you want to match the results with your learner, then you need to ask them to use their real name, or you need to know which name that they're using. And we were also trying to not ask questions just for specific question types, not just for the sake of asking a question, but also to actually gather some information that might be useful for you or that would make sense for your learners to provide. So that's what it looks like. Maybe if you can tell me if you can see the live one, you should be able to, because I'm sharing my whole screen. But if somebody can type in the question box that you can see the live one, that would be great. So I'm going to click on next now. You should see that. So for example, right off the bat, we're asking what people are using to do that activity. They could use it on a computer. Thanks very much, Luc and Yvonne. They could use it, or they could use it on a mobile device, on a tablet. So it's important for you to know what they're actually using, what they're comfortable with using. They could do it from your program, or they could do it from home if you send them the link to it, or if you give it to them on a piece of paper, although that's a little bit cumbersome. Again, here in the brackets, you see why we chose to use radio buttons for that one. Then, for example, we put in a message. Usually we kept the questions that they would fit on the screen, but at the same time we recognized, for example, when we looked at the LearnAgains tool, that depending on the kind of device or the kind of computer you're on, there will be some scrolling. So we wanted to make sure that you know if your learners can scroll. So this particular page was designed with instructions to ask learners to scroll down to see the next question. And only if they scroll down to see the next question, they will also see the next button. The survey asks then, for example, were they use a computer or tablet or a smartphone, all depending on what they are using to fill out the survey. How often they're using it, and so on. So I'm going to jump now to the Google version of it and show you a little bit more. So you see a little bit of the difference. So this is the Google Forms version. It nicely integrates with your Google account and or Gmail account, like all the other Google apps. And it's free. The difference a little bit is SurveyMonkey can do a little bit, can lay out questions a little bit easier to read or to see, and in the back end, the way it collects the data, SurveyMonkey is a little bit more powerful. But like I mentioned before, you'd have to have SurveyMonkey can be used for free, but to transfer our survey over to another SurveyMonkey account, you would have to have a paid subscription to a SurveyMonkey account, at least for the month that the survey is copied over, and then you probably could be still keep using it, even if you're reverting back to the free version. But the sharing of whereas with Google Forms, it's very easy to transfer survey over and to give you a copy of the survey, and then you can do with it whatever you want. So again, learners have to put in their name, and that's a required question because you want to know. Same kind of thing. Scroll down to see the next page. I think we looked at that one before. Those type of questions, so I'm going to just jump a little bit here. Part 2 is about the use of computers, tablets, and smartphone. So a little bit of self-reporting. At Alpha Plus, we also, I think we also recognize that self-efficacy is a big thing. At one hand, it's good to have learners demonstrate, but at the other hand, it's also good for them to be able to say, I can do this, and have confidence doing it. So I'm just going to jump a couple of things so you can see, do you use computers, tablets, or smartphone for any of the following reasons? So here you'll be getting, or they can provide a little bit of information what they are doing, and that might be useful information for you for your programming. What kind of learning activities they might want to be doing online. What kind of websites do learners use? Excuse me. If they use social networking, and what they use it for. If they make video calls, and why they make video calls. Of course, it also talks about what prevents learners from using computers. talks about if they have a cell phone or a smartphone. So that could be kind of interesting for you to know. For example, one of the things that we've in working with programs, there's a lot more programs now that do follow up also with text messages, and for that, obviously, it's important that they know if their clients can send and receive text messages for free. Most people can receive text messages for free, but sending depends on your plan. If you're on a prepaid plan, then using SMS text messaging might be good to send reminders and those kind of things. Maybe not so good for doing follow up when you require people to respond. But again, good information for your program planning. So there's an array of questions that you can choose from, that you can customize. In the third part, it talks about if learners have experience with online learning materials, or if they could imagine using digital tools like their smartphone, for example, for online learning. If they thought these materials were helpful that they've been using, if you wanted to, you could add specific materials that you're already using. If you're using the survey with learners who have already been in the program and exposed to those materials, so you could also use it to gather feedback on materials that you're already using. These things are probably familiar to you. Learn to work with others, express yourself, and give feedback. And it asks learners for their opinion if they think they need more opportunities to learn using a computer or on a tablet or on a smartphone. So I'm going to say yes. Here's, for example, a question where we've left it open, that you could either eliminate if you wouldn't want to use it, or you could list either materials that you're already using or materials that you are thinking of using to see where you should be putting your time and your investment. It also talks about, or asks about, which ways people like to learn. And over the number of years that I've worked at Alpha Plus, one thing was always clear: many learners liked learning online, but they wanted to be a teacher present, so they could ask when they got stuck or if they had a question, or if not present, then close at hand, somebody they could call or message or email or something like that. So the role of the teacher is really very central to a successful online learning experience. So there's questions about that in there, so you can see what your learners say about that. Again, a little bit more about learning preferences. And of course, like a lot of surveys have, there's an opportunity to submit comments, so that's something for them to get familiar with. Okay, so let's go back to the presentation and I'll check if there is any questions. Are there any questions at this point? Okay, no problem. We'll keep them till the end. So, like I mentioned before, it works. There's a lesson plan developed around that because we didn't really want to replicate some kind of a survey activity, assessment activity, which shouldn't be called an activity anyways. But we wanted to make it part of of a learning activity and a learning experience. And for that, people come in, as you know, people come in at whole different levels with whole different experiences. Some need more prep time, some need less prep time. But the whole idea is really to get people familiar with survey style forms, kind of thing, with the kind of basic navigation that is required in online surveys and online assessments, so that when they would have to do it without any assistance from you, or without any preparation, that they would have confidence to do it, and concentrate on what is being asked or what is being assessed. So let's just go to the lesson plan, and we can have a quick overview over the lesson plan. So it tells you, similar to other lessons plans that you've seen, it talks about the OLSF competencies, and the task groups. Estimated time, again, that estimate is really depends on the level of learners, how deep you want to go into it, what the task is about, what materials you need, the levels, the topic. It includes the outcomes for the use of technology, competency D, for communicate ideas and information, complete and create documents. That's competency B3, and engage with others, competency F, collaboration. It has some, the resources. So the links to the SurveyMonkey survey. This is the link that for the survey, or both links, and the Google Forms survey is the one that is hosted by Alpha Plus. But you'll see for the SurveyMonkey one, you'd have to contact me or contact Alpha Plus there at info@alphaplus.ca to get a copy, because we would need your username or not login information. What am I saying? Your username of the SurveyMonkey, so we can transfer it we can send it to that user. For the Google Docs one, when you first open it, there is a button that says request edit access, and you just have to click on that and then sign in with the Google account that you want to copy the survey to. And then I get a message and I can just agree to it, and there you go, you have a copy of that survey. So it has learning activities. It's a blended learning lesson plan. There's things you can do online, there's things you can do offline, as it should be, and different types of activities. And then obviously one of the activities is taking the survey. Some of the activities are here attached. There's also a glossary that you can expand on if you want. And then there's also kind of a debriefing activity. Are there any questions about the lesson plan? Yes, Angela is asking. Yes, you can absolutely. It's completely customizable because if I give it to you in Google Docs or in what am I saying? In Google Docs or in Google Forms, yes. You can do with it whatever you want. It belongs to you once it's transferred over to your Google account. I can also technically send you the lesson plan as a Word file or a PDF if you don't have a Google account, but it kind of defeats the purpose in terms of then using Google or. But let's say if you were using the SurveyMonkey version, I could send you the lesson plan in a Word doc or a PDF. Then it would make sense. But PDF you couldn't change, but a Word doc you could. So yeah, there's plenty of ways to do that. Okay. So what can you do with the results? I think you can get a good sense about learners' readiness to deal with survey-type web pages and basic navigation. You will be able to do that if you do it in a lab and you interact with the learner. So in terms of you have a learner do it after the prep you wanted to give them, and they can ask you, right? You can float around like lab teachers do, and learners can try to fill out the survey, and if they have a question, they can ask you, and that'll give you a good sense of where they get stuck and or where they don't. If they do it by themselves, without you present, you'll see how far they get, and or what questions they leave out, and then you can talk to them about why they didn't answer this one or that one. Maybe it has to do with the content of the question. Maybe it has to do with the format of the question. The only questions that are really required to do is the name, I think, and again, it doesn't have to be their own name, but something that allows you to identify who submitted a particular response. And there's a couple of questions in there, for example, where it asks, are you using a smartphone? Because otherwise any follow-up questions about a smartphone would be just frustrating for people to have to answer or to jump over. So there's kind of a question logic built in, and that's why there might be 3 required questions overall that learners can't, or learners would get stuck if they don't answer them. Other than that, they can just click through and not answer it, and then you could ask them, why didn't you answer that one? Can we talk about that? Right? I think with the results you can assess, or you can know that learners already have self-efficacy or are building self-efficacy, so gaining confidence in doing those kind of things, and becoming self-sufficient and independent in doing that. And that they will be better prepared to deal with similar situations. Like I said, a lot of those features that you find in surveys are basic navigation features and things that you will find elsewhere on online job applications, for example. You would get some information about your client's use of digital tools and their preferences for online learning. It's an opportunity for your learners to provide feedback, to have some input in your decision-making process about what kind of programming you want to offer them, what they want, what they could imagine, right? This is also a good exercise we found with teachers to do. A lot of teachers know a lot about technology because they use it at home, but not necessarily in the program. It's a little bit of a leap to do that, but it might actually, that kind of exercise might actually reveal some interesting information for you. I think with those results, you can make more evidence-based decision about what kind of hardware or software you need to buy when there's money available, or when you're talking to your board and trying to make a point about you need this or that, and you might be questioned why. Or if you're doing fundraising or a community drive, it might be good information not just to say, well, we're fundraising for support for the program, but these are the kinds of things that we want to do, and this is how it supports our clients. Yeah, so it can give you data to back up requests for additional funding, also for technology purchases, and once in a while we hear that there is technology being funded through the ministry. Some programs have just asked and they have received some extra funding. So I don't know Maybe it's just a matter of convincing folks at the ministry sometimes. I don't know. So I've showed you a few of quite a bit of those questions. So that the kind of data that you get is where computers or tablets and smartphones are used, what learners are able to do on any of these devices, specific examples learners use these devices for, programs and websites learners like to use. You get information on social networking like Facebook, WhatsApp, LinkedIn, Instagram. Like I said, it's fully customizable, so you can, that's just examples. You can ask them about specific programs as well. You get information about what stops learners from using a computer. If they've used learning materials that are online before, or if they'd like to learn online and how they would like to do it. And yes, did mention a couple of times before. So the survey is fully customizable once it's transferred to you, either in your SurveyMonkey account or in your free Google account. And you have access to the results, and you can share and you can control who you share the results with, if anybody. Here's a couple of examples of, so this is from the pilot from one program. So these are actually responses from learners. There's 38 responses. There were 38 responses in this pilot. And this is the responses to the question, where do you use a computer, a tablet, or a smartphone? So 29 or 76% use it at home. Not sure how well you can read it at your end, so I'll read out a little bit. About 68.5 use it in a computer lab during class time. This was a program that had a good computer lab, so that definitely makes a difference. There's about 31.5% that use computers at the public library. 29% use public Wi-Fi. So this is, for example, something, if this is the kind of data that you're getting from your clients, you could use that to make or to justify a decision that you want to use. Do you want to talk more about safety and security using public Wi-Fi spots? It's obviously for this particular program, it's obviously something that would speak to almost a third of the learner population in that program. In SurveyMonkey, you can get stats like this. If you're familiar with SurveyMonkey, nice and colorful. Do you think a computer or tablet or smartphone is a good way to learn these things? First column, green is yes, blue is no, orange is I don't know. Find information, read and understand, write better. This is a question we looked at before. Things that you're, I think, the kind of language that you're familiar with. Express yourself, practice math skills, work with others. And here is one screenshot from the Google form. So it's a little bit more simple, like I've mentioned before, a little bit simpler in terms of the layout, but it also gives you stats. This one we didn't do. The pilot was done with SurveyMonkey, so that's why there's only 4 responses there. But this is actually stats that these would actually be somewhat similar to the pilot we did in SurveyMonkey. Okay, and so this is my last slide. With the links to the lesson plan in the Google Doc format. You can actually, now that I think of it, if you open that and then go to, let me just see, I'll switch the screen here and go to file, I think. You can download it as Microsoft Word. Hope you can see that. So you don't even have to email me. You can still email me and I can send it to you. But if you want it in Microsoft Word, you can do it that way. The lesson plan also exists in French, and that's the link to it. The Google Forms only exists in English, so the Google Form version of it. The SurveyMonkey version, the link is there. If you want a copy of the SurveyMonkey version for your SurveyMonkey account, like I said, you need to have at least for a month a paid account. And if it's a paid account, then I would need your username, and then I can just send you the survey, and then you can customize it in your own account. And there's a French version of the SurveyMonkey survey. We're hoping to have the Google Forms one in French as well. Okay, I will stop here, and I'll see there's a few more questions. Where do you find the answers in Google? Okay, so the answers in Google, I'm assuming you mean then the responses that are submitted. Once you, I think I can show you. Once you have the a copy of the survey, let me see. I have to go into my. Where do we have it? No, that's not here because it was the year before. Okay, and okay, so once it looks like this, once you've once you own the copy of the survey, the first tab is the questions. The second tab is the responses. You can see the summary responses, or you can see it individual, and you can go through individual. You can print it off as or save it as a PDF, or print it off if you then want to review it with your student. And if you want it, the link, it's basically you just click on send and you grab it from, you can shorten the link, you can grab it from here. If you have any questions about that, you can email me and I can either send you a couple of screenshots or walk you through it. Okay, another question. Is the survey the one adapted for literacy students? Yes, yes, it is adapted for literacy students. So the original survey was done for language students, and this is the one adapted for literacy students. Okay, I'll stop the recording here, and thank you for attending the webinar. If any of you still have a question, let me know, or if you want the microphone, I can give you the microphone as well. Thanks very much.